November 12, 1942. In the winter of 1942, as the Battle of Stalingrad reached its breaking point, the German 6th Army held a narrow stretch of ruins. Along the Volga River, the air smelled of gunpowder and smoke. Snow fell through, roofs torn apart by bombs. Among the soldiers stationed near the Red October factory was Corporal Johann Bauer, a 25-year-old sniper from Munich. He had been fighting on the Eastern Front for over a year. Quiet, patient, respected for his accuracy. His weapon was the Karabiner 98K rifle, fitted with a ZF-39 scope, standard for German marksmen. By November, the city had become a landscape of ash and concrete. Every street was a battlefield, every house a bunker. The Soviet 62nd Army under General Vasily Chuikov fought from basements, sewers, and shattered factories. German intelligence called it Rattenkrieg, the Rat War, because soldiers crawled, hid, and killed in the rubble like shadows. Temperatures dropped below -15 degrees Celsius. Soldiers froze at night beside fires of burning debris. Ammunition was rationed, food was scarce, and the men were ordered to hold every position until the last bullet. In that chaos, snipers became the most feared weapon. They hunted each other from dawn to dusk. One unseen shot could silence a platoon. Bauer's position overlooked a ruined street, leading toward the river. His orders were simple. No one crosses that street alive. Soldiers, partisans, or civilians. Command feared that Soviet scouts were using refugees to carry ammunition and messages. Through the lines, he worked with a single spotter, a young private named Ernst. Together, they had survived weeks of constant fire, living on melted snow and half rations of bread. Their world was reduced to the view, through a rifle scope, the silent geometry of death. On the morning of November 12, 1942, the fog lifted briefly. Across the street, movement stirred in the ruins. Through the scope, Bauer saw a small figure, a boy, no older than 9 or 10, wrapped in a torn coat far too large for him. The child carried something in his arms, a bundle wrapped in cloth. The spotter whispered, "Could be a bomb." They used children now. Orders were clear. Anyone crossing that zone was to be shot on sight. Bauer adjusted his sights. Distance, 180 meters. Wind, light. The boy moved slowly, frightened, glancing over his shoulder with every step. The bundle slipped. Inside it, something round rolled out, a loaf of bread. It wasn't a weapon. It was food. Through the rifle scope, Bauer could see the boy's face. Pale, thin, eyes hollow from hunger. He hesitated. His finger rested on the trigger but did not move. The spotter urged him again. "Orders, Johann! You must shoot!" But the sniper stayed silent. The crosshairs drifted away from the boy and settled on the wall behind him. He could have pulled the trigger. No one would have known. But he didn't. For a few seconds, there was only the sound of wind through broken glass. Then the boy disappeared into the smoke, clutching his bread. Bauer exhaled slowly and lowered the rifle. For the first time in months, he felt the weight of the war pressing against his conscience. That night, Soviet artillery opened fire on the district. Over 2,000 shells fell within an hour. Entire buildings vanished in the bombardment. The next morning, the snipers checked their sector. The street was covered in ash and bodies. Amid the rubble lay the same small figure Bauer had seen. The boy with the bread. He was motionless, killed not by a bullet but by the bombardment. The sniper stared for a long time through his scope, frozen in silence. He had spared the child, but the city had not. By late November, Operation Uranus began. The Soviet forces encircled over 250,000 German troops inside Stalingrad. Supply lines were cut. The Luftwaffe could not deliver enough food or ammunition. Soldiers received 200 grams of bread a day, sometimes mixed with sawdust to make it last. Frostbite and starvation killed more men than bullets. In January 1943, German radio messages still claimed victory was near, but morale had collapsed. On February 2, 1943, Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus surrendered the remnants of the 6th Army. Over 91,000 men, barely 6,000, would ever return home after years of captivity in the Soviet Union. Among the prisoners marched east was Corporal Johann Bauer. Bauer spent the next 12 years in labor camps near Vorkuta, above the Arctic Circle. The men mined coal in temperatures that reached -30 degrees. Many died from exhaustion and disease. When Bauer was finally released in 1955, he returned to Munich, a city rebuilt from ruins. He was 38 years old. The war had taken his youth, his family, and his faith in the world. Neighbors said he rarely spoke of Stalingrad, but in the quiet hours of night, he was seen sitting by his window, staring through a pair of old binoculars, as if still searching for something lost long ago. Historians recorded many acts of cruelty at Stalingrad, but there were also rare flashes of humanity. Small, private decisions that no report ever mentioned. The story of a German sniper who refused to shoot a child cannot be verified through documents, but it could have happened 100 times. In that city, children starved in basements, scavenging food among corpses. Soldiers on both sides faced impossible choices every day. By the end of the battle, Stalingrad had cost nearly 2 million lives, soldiers and civilians combined. The city itself was destroyed beyond recognition, and somewhere in that ruin, one German soldier laid down his rifle, not from fear but from conscience, a small act of mercy in a world that had forgotten what mercy meant. When the guns finally fell silent, Stalingrad became more than a battlefield. It became a symbol of endurance, of sacrifice, and of the thin line between duty and humanity. History remembers generals and victories, but sometimes the most important stories are the ones no one records, the moments when a man chooses not to kill. Corporal Johann Bauer never wrote about that day. His name appears in no official list, no archive. But if one child had lived a few hours longer, because one soldier lowered his rifle, then perhaps that was the only victory he ever truly won.